Welcome to the Arena Decklist Podcast. I'm Gerry Thompson, joined as always by Brian Gottlieb. And man, we had a good weekend, I suppose. We both won tournaments, so I guess we're both going to the regional championship? Question mark.
Well, it turns out I misunderstood the assignment, and I did in fact win a tournament, and I did qualify, but I registered for the wrong game, and I won a Flesh and Blood Road to Nationals tournament. So I will be at that tournament, but have not yet won my Magic PTQ invite. Unlike you stepped back into the ring for the first time. And when do you think your last PTQ was? Ballpark.
Ooh, I don't know. I feel like...
I think I can answer this, actually. I feel like it was probably a Pioneer PTQ that you recorded and is presently on our YouTube page. Now, that's online, so I don't know if we want to count that or not. I meant more like in-person PTQ, but I bet that was your last actual PTQ.
No, I don't know about that, because we played like the Dreadhorde Arcanist PTQ. When was that? The Legacy one.
Was that after that? So that was GP Seattle.
I mean, Dreadhorde Arcanist was definitely later in the lifespan of Pioneer, right?
Probably. That seems correct to me. Yeah, so you might have that right. So that was probably your last PTQ, right? That was GP Seattle in, I don't know, 2018 is my guess. 2019?
Yeah, that sounds about right, but
okay.
It would have been cool if it was the Pioneer one, because I scooped the finals of that one.
Yes, correct. So you just win everyone you enter. That'd be good. But still, pretty impressive return overall.
Yeah, not too bad. I don't know. I mean, I think I've had this problem for a while where I can know a thing is true, know a thing is great, and I can shout it from the rooftops, but until I win a tournament with it, no one cares.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Yep.
You know, like if I just posted my sideboard guide, nobody would have gotten like 50 retweets or whatever before I won an event? No. And I mean, the event was 34 people. Like, it was still, 6 rounds, so like 9 rounds total, whatever. Like, it's a lot of rounds, and it's maybe more results than, I don't know, like what we have normally. But at the same time, it's just like, I've been talking about this deck for 2 months, y'all.
Yep. There's not really much to say. It's kind of a problem we've talked about for a long time, where I think this does relate more to you than me, but there's like this kind of assumption that because we haven't been like grinding the games and, putting in the work on a system that we both hated and had no interest in, that we just kind of didn't know what we were talking about anymore. And I do think I know less of what I'm talking about. Like, I'm less plugged into the minute-to-minute stuff, but like as a baseline understanding of Magic, that has not changed for either of us. And now you've quote unquote proved it, but it's exactly the same situation as it was before. You don't know more. You aren't any better. It's just what you've been saying the whole time. And it's good to have the validation, but you do wish that people were just like, I have believed this person in the past. Nothing has changed. I'll believe them again.
Yeah, I mean, used to kind of happen for people going to FNM or PTQs. It'd be like they would just go on Star City Games on Friday and see what looked good, and basically just copy a deck list apropos of nothing aside from the author saying that it was good. Like, granted, this is 15 years ago or whatever.
Yep.
But it was like that was kind of like the best source of information you had. But like now that we just have Magic Online data to go off of and everything, people are just like, well, did 5-0 league or not, right? And I don't know, in the grand scheme of things, does that matter versus someone who knows what they're talking about like how good something is, like their confidence level in it,
No, it doesn't matter at all. And I actually think the waters are even more muddy than that. It's not only that, and this could extend to literally any part of our lives, but it's not only that there's like this moto thing hanging over everything and this accepted way of getting information, but there's also obviously new social media platforms that have evolved over the years. And so the people with the loudest voices on those often get to shape the narratives in a way that will obscure the truth. Like I said, we see this in all parts of our lives.
Yeah,
and I think Magic is no exception. Just because someone has 70,000 followers doesn't mean they necessarily know the best deck. And this extends really hard to YouTube, where I actually, for some reason, was thinking about the YouTube stuff more over the past week, where like there are quite a few YouTube followings where I'm like, this person actually knows nothing. And it is it is troubling that this is where Magic information is coming from at this point.
I don't know that I know anyone who's like, yeah, I get my Magic info from YouTube. Or
there
whatever.
are a ton of people, an absolute ton. And I know you don't know anyone like that. And I probably like don't either, honestly, just in terms of like close personal acquaintances. But most people who are like younger than us, that's probably where they get their information from.
Maybe. Life comes at you quick, man. I never thought
numbers. Like the numbers are ridiculous on some of this stuff.
Oh, well, I know that, but I don't know. I just thought that there wasn't much of an overlap between like avid PTQ grinder versus person who got all their news from YouTube.
Nah, it's strange because like the things I hear people say are, it used to be about like the Star City Riders. Like you'd hear them, oh, this is so and so's deck, and it's changed. The names I hear dropped in like the gaming spaces are YouTubers and Twitter personalities, not people dedicated to the craft. I mean, you're dedicated to a different craft, but it's a very different set of names for sure. This is the old man yelling at clouds section of the podcast. But
yeah, that's what I was getting at with the like life comes at you quick stuff. Is I used to be like the edgelord young kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And never thought that I would get to the boomer phase of my life or whatever. But here we are.
Whammy, full boomer.
So it goes. How big was your tournament? Like, how hard was it? Just like specifics, right? Because like I don't know anything about Fab, and I imagine that's probably true for the average listener too.
Yeah, it was 20-some people, and as far as how hard it was, not very. I'm sorry if anyone I've played is listening to this podcast, which I know some people are. Not very is my answer to that, and it's good though. I mean, like Fab in my area is still like young, and this was one of the first larger. This was the first like thing above an F&M level tournament for the store we were playing at. Yeah. And there was a bunch of people from like Long Island and Manhattan area. So really good to see people come from out of town and play. Really good to actually see the locals. Like the top 8 was comprised of 6 people that play regularly in the store, including my brother, who also qualified for nationals because top 4 qualify in this tournament.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. So there's just a really good showing from local folks, but there's still a lot of room for improvement in the scene. It's exciting. All these players have gotten much better, but it was a pretty easy tournament. I don't mean to be a jerk about it. But.
Well, I mean, top 4 qualifying is nice. Was there anything on the line after that, or was it just like top 4?
Yeah. As with most things with Flesh and Blood, there is like a promo prize that comes with it, an exclusive promo you can only get this way, a cold foil Icelander in this case, and I was the winner of that. Which
nice.
I don't know what that's worth, but you can't find it to buy online. Not that I would sell it. Like I just keep all this stuff anyway. But yeah, so a nice little prize there that I was excited to add to my collection.
Cool. I got $306 in store credit.
Did you use it?
Oh, hell yeah.
What'd you get?
I didn't know if I was ever going to go back to the store. So went up to Cho's house on Friday, who's in Northern Virginia. And then we had a modern RCQ on Saturday in Virginia. And then there was a Streets sealed RCQ in Maryland on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a full weekend, right? And Josh squeaked into top 8 of the modern one along with me.
Nice.
He was 4-2, and then he lost in top 8. We would have played in top 4. I'll get into some of the specifics of that stuff, but then it was just like, all right, I have $306. He had like $60 some or whatever. So we pooled our store credit, and I just went shopping. The final result, I believe, was an oversized plush D20.
Okay, I saw that on Twitter.
Yep. Box of Double Masters draft boosters.
Okay.
A pack of Dragon Shields for Josh to play his PTQ the next day.
Next tournament, good.
A Monster Energy drink. A Gatorade.
Thirsty. Stay hydrated. Love it.
And I feel like there was like one other like random assorted,
like a candy bar, or
yeah, I don't know. So it's like, oh, what'd you get for when you're PTQ? And it's just like, I don't know, a grab bag of stuff.
Well, there's a promo card, isn't there?
Yeah, I
like
got a foil. I got a foil
Nykthos?
Nykthos.
Okay, that's cool.
And then
Is
Josh,
that worth anything? Is that a valuable card?
I actually kind of got curious and tried to look last night, and like Goldfish did not have accurate pricing up, so
Yeah.
it just had like no dollar value listed. And then I went
Yeah, it
on
sounds like a
eBay
similar
and-
situation to mine, where it's just like you can only get it this way, and there's not that many out there yet.
Yeah. So I don't know. There was one that was like buy it now for $100 and some change or something. I don't know if that's accurate, but but at the very least there were like auctions going where it was at like 60, so it's somewhere in there, you know.
Cool.
But yeah, Josh, like, you know, doesn't really want anything to do with like owning cards, because what the hell is he going to do with them? Right. Except for like play maybe occasionally. So I got like his Lava Spike and my Lava Spike and our Nykthoses for top 8 and stuff. So yeah, just random assortment of goodies.
That's cool. Kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. I don't really expect anything at this point from like a PTQ entry. So I think like whatever I get, I'm just totally fine with. I don't know if you feel the same way, but
yeah, I don't expect much either. Especially so it was 34 people. It was capped at something.
Okay, so it didn't hit the cap.
Did not hit the cap. So trying to find information about these events is a trip, because you basically have Wizards Event Locator and that's about it.
Yeah, which doesn't always work right off the bat. You need to know like the secret of adding filters and things like that. So
yep. And then even then it just shows you everything within 500 miles and you can't change that. So and there's like no way to sort like distance from you or whatever. So yeah, it's really weird. And then even through Event Locator, they'll have some information listed for the event and stuff, but it's basically just like, come play Modern at this store or whatever. You know, it's like the information is just not very helpful, right? It's not like even on the Event Locator, it says like, oh, well, this one starts at 10, this one starts at 11, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of weird. And then trying to then register for these events, it's like some of them are like, I'll join our Discord. Okay, we'll go to our website. Call us over the phone.
Yeah, there's that is like the most tilting thing, how every single store has its own way of registering and requires different things. And the one where you have to join a Discord and like, I don't know, that just for whatever reason rubs me the wrong way.
Honestly, that has been my favorite one, I guess. Certainly compared to calling someone on the phone.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Don't love the phone call.
But also, a lot of them are basically like, well, go through our website and then register on Melee and then get the companion app. And it's just like, huh? What? Like, why am I signed up for this event in 3 different places?
A lot of stairs presently in the system. That's been my first,
technology was a mistake. I don't understand. It's like some of these things have made it a lot easier, but it's also just oddly a lot more difficult at the same time, where you just like need a lot of things going on. So first time using companion app, and Josh and I were pretty happy with it because it's just like bare bones, like pairings and standings. And it's like, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think I used it at the team event that we played. Didn't we? Didn't one of us use it at that to figure out our stuff?
You might have. I was just going off of Melee, which was not great.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like maybe I did use it then, but I've heard mostly good things about it. So that's cool. I'm glad that is functional and happening.
Yeah, and the morning of, I think it was like, oh, you know, like we can just register our decks on Melee, cool. And then there was just like no button to do that. So the morning of, we actually had to fill out deck lists too, which is fine, but it's like I could totally see a world where like we just roll in with 5 minutes to spare because we assume that we can do it online or whatever, and then we can't. So like that's a thing.
So what did Melee? What did they do in the process? Like, what is its function in the process?
Good question. I like maybe it's functioning as event reporter or something. I don't know.
But there's a separate event reporter, right?
I would imagine so. So yeah, I don't know. I don't understand.
Okay.
But yeah, what the thing with the first store, like the store was really nice. Both stores we went to were excellent. Just like pretty nice, pretty clean, good, kind of like strip mall areas, food around them, had ample play space and everything. Cool. Had other things going on in the store that were not just us. So like they had space to do multiple things. The first one had like a tabletop area in the back for people to do Warhammer-esque stuff. And then the other one had like a Pokemon League going on at the same time as the PTQ. So that was cool. But yeah, the first store had it where it was like we're trying to figure out like what time these things start, and it's like their website says 11, and then you go to Melee and it says 10, and then you call them and they say 10:30, and it's just like,
oh my god,
damn. I don't know. I get it. It's like the first time running an event in a very long time, but it's still just like, well, if that were the case, you would maybe try and get it right or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, that stuff matters to me anyway. I think like, I don't know, maybe there's like a lingering assumption like these fools will put up with anything, and that mostly comes out right. Like, put up with a lot
we did
over the years.
We did, and we would continue to do so. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think it's as true for me now. I'm finding that a huge portion of like, and again, this is mostly like in the flesh and blood space, but when I'm like looking at, oh, do I want to go to this event? I'm literally just picking stores that I had good experiences at, and that's it. Anything else, I'm like, I'm not going to bother with that. Like I went to one PTQ in a place that was honestly pretty gross, and I would never go back there under any circumstances. There's no reason to. And I went to one that was at an incredible store that now when I see them on the schedule, I'm like, oh, I'll definitely go there. So most excellent gaming in Connecticut, by the way. I'll give them a shout out. Why not? But they have a really nice store, and I enjoyed playing there multiple times now. So
yeah, right on. So I think the thing that really kicked off our weekend started on the weekend before, where at some point Josh asked me, what percentage chance do you think you have of winning one of these RCQs?
Mm-hmm. And what did you put that number at?
What do you think I put that number at?
35 is my guess.
I said, well, you're probably going to yell at me, but 90.
90 is very high, but okay.
And he was just like, dude, come on, like that's just ridiculous. And I admit I was thinking in terms of modern.
Okay.
I certainly for the sealed PTQ the next day or whatever, like I wasn't going to say 90 or Pioneer. I wouldn't even say 90, but yeah, I mean, I guess I got it wrong because it's 100.
It is 100. You estimated low. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
And what, like, was this just a basis of you had figured it out? You had the best deck in the room. You had your plans, and enough that when you're in that scenario, you're just like, all right, this is a near certainty.
I'm just really good at these tournaments. It's like if I don't win the first one, I'm definitely winning the second one. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I don't know who's got the chips, I guess.
Yeah.
No, it's just like, going to local store events, I feel pretty favored, even though there was definitely, some out of town talent or whatever. And then the Maryland one was just stacked.
Okay.
It was maybe 10 or more people who were like gold on the Pro Tour at some point,
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is, you asked me the question of how tough was the tournament. I wanted to ask you, how tough was your tournament? Because like I heard you say 90 and like my ears went up and I'm like, that's silly. You can't have 90% chance. But if you asked me my chances of winning the tournament I played, I probably would have said 90 as well. So
right.
I guess it's a different game with like lower variance, but it's really about estimation to your ability versus the field, right? And you were just comfortable that you were that far ahead. Yeah,
more or less. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like I don't know until I'm in the thick of it.
What round did you know you were going to win the event in?
I think that after like round 1 or round 2, I was like, no, like my deck is just actually good, and I know that for a fact, and it is like battle tested or whatever versus, well, I'm like playing games against my friends or whatever, and it feels good, and I'm pretty sure this is the choice, and I'm pretty sure this is how I'm supposed to build it or whatever. But it's like you don't know until like you're actually playing the rounds, and it's like, yeah, this does hold up against people who have different opinions than your friend group and are like actually trying their hardest to beat you and stuff like that. So
yep.
And then I immediately lost round 3.
No, but, perfect.
That's okay. It's fine. Yeah, I don't know. The tournament had a lot of players who I thought were very competent and have had recent relative success, but it was nothing like Sunday's event. Like Sunday's event was just absurd.
Do you think that was a location thing? Was that a sealed thing? Or why did it draw so much more talent?
A little bit of both, because a lot of the people are from Maryland, like Tommy Ashton's in Maryland, Matt Lindy was there, just a lot of folks like that, And I don't know. I mean, maybe it was like this specific store or whatever, and like a lot of those people had played in an RCQ the day previous. Like Tommy had lost in the finals of one, so maybe if we're just like going to Maryland ones, they're a lot harder. But also, it just looked like there were 5 in the area on any given day.
Yeah, a lot of saturation and not really good spacing in terms of like when stuff is happening. Like I know there are 2 PTQs on Saturday within 35 minutes of my house. So kind of frustrating that like these are kind of the 2 that could theoretically be closest to me. It can't really get any closer than that given the distribution of stores, and they're on the same day.
Yeah, that's rough. I don't know. For Virginia, when there are a ton of options, especially if you're willing to look like in all cardinal directions.
Yep.
It's like, there's 2 on every Saturday or Sunday, and you can probably pick your format between Modern and Pioneer.
That's cool. Good to have a bunch of options, I guess. And what was the vibe like? Like, did it seem like people were excited to be back? Did it seem, I don't know.
Yeah, it felt like the olden days,
Were there a lot of new faces or a lot of older faces that you would expect to be there? Like did you feel like the crowd had changed?
Well,
arena folks is really what I'm getting at. Like during this period of extreme acquisition, again, record profits again for Magic the Gathering with the most recent earnings report. So more players than ever. Was that reflected in this player base?
It's hard to say. I wasn't asking people like, hey, did you come in through arena or whatever?
See, that's the thing I'm definitely going to ask people. I don't know. That's like what fascinates me about this stuff. I want to know where these people came from and like who they are and what their relationship to the game is. I probably care more about that than the tournament, actually. And this is why you're 90% to win the tournament. And if you ask me to estimate my percentages, I would go 5%.
I'm curious, and I do want to know that stuff. And if it comes up, I'm definitely not going to shy away from it or whatever. But it also just feels like a very strange question to ask someone just out of the blue. So I don't know. It didn't organically come up. I did not know a lot of the people, but I also have not played live Magic in 2 years and some change, and I haven't lived in this area since then also. So it's just
here's an annoying question for you that you're going to feel uncomfortable answering. How many of the people did you feel knew who you were?
I don't know.
That's interesting too, right? Like theoretically, there's a point where most people playing PTQs would know exactly who you are.
Yeah.
And is that still true at this moment?
So I would say that the person who I played round 3 and in top 4 knew who I was. This is Stephen Nagy, because I've known him for like 15 years.
Sure, cheating, but okay.
Yeah. And I think for the first 4 rounds outside of Nagy, I honestly didn't know if they knew me or not.
Okay. It's interesting. I don't know what to make of it. It's a changing world, but
yeah, I mean, it's possible that people did, but I think that
sure, you want to play it cool, right?
Yeah, people were just like more low key about it. Like they did not give away whether or not they knew me. So
yep, that's totally fine. I think that is something that is a reasonable option as well. Only thing you can judge against is how like people used to treat you when you sat down to play an event like this versus how they reacted at this moment.
Right. And it used to be worse, I guess, is what I'll say.
Yep.
So this was actually kind of nice, where it was just like, sit down, exchange some pleasantries, just play the games. All right, see you later.
Dude, when I first started playing Flesh and Blood, I loved it. I was like, nobody has any idea who I am. This is fantastic. And now I've gone and blown it probably. So.
Oh yeah, because you won your thing.
No, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I did like the coverage for the Pro Tour and also make the game. So I think I am becoming more known to these people now.
Well, yeah, those aren't necessarily the most like, oh, this is going to make you famous sort of things, though.
No, I agree with that. But I have now started to encounter people who are like, oh, I saw you do coverage of the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. Tournament was fun. Definitely racked with like a lot of different reasons for anxiety at the start of the tournament. And Josh and I both had a thing in place that was like, if either of us is uncomfortable for any reason, like no questions asked, we can just leave.
Yeah, that's good. That's a huge thing that actually could make you more comfortable knowing that you're never trapped. So.
Yeah, exactly. So after the first couple rounds, like everything was fine. Played the tournament. I played the 4-color Omnath deck with Risen Reefs and got to make a few tweaks based on the stuff that I learned last week, and then was also
sideboard guide up on Arena deck list. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to make sure people know if they want to see the full list and all of your insight, it's over on arenadecklist.com.
Correct. Yeah, a little like Q&D article basically, because I at first I was just like, well, I just want to do bare bones like deck list and sideboarding guide, but then I was like, well, there's also some weird stuff that people are going to ask about, so I'll just like make a couple quick notes, and then it was like, oh, it's 1,000 words. So
yep. That's how I get you.
not quite 1,000 or 2,000 word article or whatever, but like it's kind of close. I can't help myself. I talk about things. I have reasons for why I do things and why every card is there, basically. So get some of that insight, and then simultaneously to that, I was like also working on Murktide for Josh to play and talking to him about it and everything. And I might just do a sideboarding guide for that too, because I went through a lot of that stuff and tried to figure out what I thought was optimal. And Josh ended up losing in top 8 to Nagy, who was playing like more traditional 4-color with the counter spells and everything.
Yep.
Which is just a bad matchup, for Murktide, like no matter which way you slice it. And it was weird. Like the field, I feel like all the people who like you would consider like the end bosses were all playing 4-color, but talking to my friend who lives in Atlanta, it's like all those players gravitate towards Murktide.
Interesting. So, but if you're quote unquote an end boss, it's one of those two.
Yeah, I mean you can make cases for basically anything, but yes, I think that if you are just like a best deck playing type of person, it's definitely one of those two decks, and Murktide has maybe a better spread against other things, but is pretty bad against 4-color, and then 4-color is like, solid, a little bit more solid against the things that Murktide is not.
Also very customizable.
Yeah, that too. And then kind of like wins the Murktide mirror, and then my list with Cavern Souls and Risen Reef was also just very good in the mirror. So yeah, I don't know. It was weird because it wasn't like all the decks I was scared of, like like Cascade and like maybe some Burn. I did play against Burn once, but just like all those weirdo decks were not really there. I played against Grixis Shadow, Amulet, the mirror match 3 times, I think.
Okay.
Burn, and then I played against Blue White Urza, playing for top 8 and in the finals.
Wow. Interesting. We kind of trashed that deck quite a bit when we saw it.
It was the same player.
It was the same player where we trashed their deck list?
No. Oh,
that you played both rounds.
It might have been. Yeah. It might have been. But yeah, it was the same player I played playing for top. Like they also squeaked in at 4-2 because it was.
What did you think of that list, that matchup? I mean, that's the other small data point we have, is a deck that did well.
Yeah, it's weird because I don't know. My opponents seemed to know their stuff for sure, and we talked about how the 4-color matchup just seemed heinous for their deck, and he still just like kept beating up on the 4-color people that were not me. He was very cognizant of the fact, I think, like playing for a top 8 in round 6, where he's like, yeah, I beat it twice already, but I know it's like my worst matchup, and then he beat it again in top 4. But then
interesting unfamiliarity or just like having a good plan can be worth a lot.
Yeah, and my draws ended up being like very good and definitely popped off with like Risen Reef against them and stuff. So I don't know. But yeah, I had Chalices in my sideboard that were just like dead weight, but like that's good because then it means I'm not playing against the scary matchups and everything.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know. For like knowing nothing about the field, I definitely got pretty fortunate with the decks that people chose to play, which was cool. And I guess okay, so do you know for a fact if I can continue to play in these events?
I do not know that. I think you can, but I don't know for a fact.
Okay, I was guessing that I couldn't because why the hell would you be able to? But I also don't know for sure. So like I just didn't play in Sunday's thing.
I don't know why I think you can. I can't answer that. I mean, I just don't know. I will tell you that, like, again, coming from Flesh and Blood where you can keep playing, it's awesome. Like, you're not just done with your season, and it gives you a reason to, like, stay involved. And it's, I don't know, like, you want to play the game that you're this invested in, right? Like you don't want to be locked out of your local scene for months. It was never a good system, really. And I feel like they recognize that. And like at some point I was like, oh, good. I'm glad they figured this out. But I can't point you to a thing that says you're allowed to keep playing. I can't point you to a definitive source for that. So maybe play it safe until you get some concrete information.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to play in the sealed thing because I don't think the format is good, but I do enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And then also being able to potentially block for Josh would have been cool, but whatever. I was like, I'm not going to risk it. Like, briefly tried to look it up. Who could possibly know?
No,
I'm sure the answer out there. I'm sure someone is going to be able to point to it.
Someone will reach out to us. That's the best way to do it. Is just complain loudly, and then all of your problems will be fixed. So.
No, I mean, I'm not complaining. It was basically all I was getting at was that
I'll complain then. I'm complaining. That should be clear information. You shouldn't have to guess for that type of thing.
Okay. Well, all I was going to get to was that it would be interesting to continue to play specifically the modern tournaments and try and figure out like, you know, metagame and like why people are picking the decks that they are and like try and get a handle on that because me having no information, I kind of just ginned it. I just got lucky with what decks people chose to play. And certainly like the matchup spread I played against too. So
doesn't this feel incongruent with the idea that you're like 90% to win, where you're now saying you like ginned it and got lucky? Does that actually line up with 90% to win?
I ginned it and got lucky where like most of my matchups were very good and I didn't have to try that hard.
Okay, so you ginned it in that you made your tournament very easy, but you were going to win no matter what. It's just how hard it was going to be.
Well, I mean, I was going to win 9 out of 10, you know.
Right. There you go.
Just got it out of the way early.
Fair enough. That's a fair answer.
Like I said, it, you know, like smallish field, playing modern, confident in my deck choice and everything. Like, yeah, 90%. But if I was playing in the Maryland sealed thing, I'm definitely not 90%. Right. It might be flipped. I don't know. But with modern and the metagame kind of just like being what it is, it just feels like you have so much control over your destiny with like how customizable the deck is and everything. So
right. No, I mean, deck building edge is tremendous. And I think, you know, not to say that you're not an excellent player as well, but especially you'll get a huge edge where you have agency in deck building. Like I am confident you will always be able to convert on that edge. So not shocking that you were able to get this result very quickly.
You know how many times I play something like Shadow and miss a bobble trigger and it would just like straight up cost me a match because it's like I'm on razor thin margins. I just need to play like absolutely perfect in order to eke out every percentage point. I missed so many bobble triggers and it just like didn't matter.
Welcome to the Brian Gottlieb School of Magic, where you just make your deck that good that you don't have to be good at the game. That's literally my strategy. It's just I will be so much better than you at deck building and making the choice that I'll mess things up and probably play suboptimally, and I'm still going to win. And it makes it a lot harder. Like, don't get me wrong, I would trade with you 100% of the time, but if I have to find a path to victory, it's just make your deck that much better and have the capacity to go that far over the top of them and be that much stronger than what they're doing. Because those razor thin margins, I mean, I can do it in the right circumstances. Things like Delver, very comfortable getting those thin margins. But yeah, other spots I'd rather just overpower my opponents.
Yeah, I definitely like it. Feels good, you know. It was just like I only have 5 cards in my hand instead of 7 or whatever.
Right, and they all draw a card, so it's not like it really matters. It's just like one less option you have on a given turn.
Right, exactly. So it didn't end up mattering that much. I mean, I definitely lost games as a result of it, but I don't think it cost me a match really. So
that's interesting. Like you said, usually those margins are very thin, and when that stops happening, that's like my alarm bells moment where like, well, if you don't have to play good, this deck is probably like pretty pushed and either is like the thing you should be playing or the thing that shouldn't be allowed to exist. And so where on that spectrum do you find 4-color now? Do you think it's like been a lot of talk this week about whether it's too good for the format, whether something should change? Is modern a little stale because of its existence? Like, what's your assessment of where 4-color sits right now?
Well, it's kind of weird that you asked that, considering I just talked about how there were a bunch of bad matchups that I didn't necessarily want to play against that I just didn't have to.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you wanted to beat the deck, you certainly could. Obviously, there's a very cost prohibitive amount of stuff that goes into it, where it's like, oh, you want to change decks, like, that'll be $1,000, please. So not everyone has that capability, and that can lead to problems with Modern as far as like metagame shifts are concerned, right? So in a lot of instances, your best bet is to, change 5 cards and hope that it helps. But in the case of this deck, changing 5 cards, I mean, there's not really something specific that you can turn to. So it gets really tough. But I think that for the most part, large enough, general enough metagame is hostile enough towards it that it shouldn't be, the de facto number 1 best deck, like impossible to beat, blah, blah, blah. And Magic Online, I think, is the big way that you can look at that, where a lot of people's collections are relatively fluid because, either they're like super invested in Magic and have a bunch of cards, or they're using something like Card Hoarder or whatever to just rent a collection effectively. So I don't know. 5 color has certainly had its moments of dominance on Magic Online, but it hasn't been 100% consistent. And people are willing to play things like Living End and Charbelcher and whatever. So I don't know. I mean, it seems fine to me. Okay, let's go back to like the very beginning, right? Where, yes, I've been talking about this deck for like 2 months, but I've also been talking about how I am loath to shuffle 80 cards.
Mm-hmm. How'd that go?
That sucked.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm just out. I can't do it. I know I can't do it.
You already do it if you double sleeve a 60.
But I will double sleeve an 80. So now I've had this just stupid huge pile of cards, and it's not happening.
I offered to mail you my deck. It would have been exactly as tall as a double sleeve 60. So,
well, lucky for you, I have a Pioneer tournament this weekend, not a Modern tournament. So I don't need it yet, but I do know I have a Modern tournament on my calendar in September now. So maybe by then I will have to take you up on this offer and get this deck into my hands.
Well, I left it at Josh's.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm screwed.
Because I kept offering it to people.
Nobody wanted it.
People kept turning me down. Lindy at the PTQ was like, yeah, maybe I would play that deck, but it's like really expensive or whatever. I'm just like, dude, take my deck. I'd already offered it to you. You turned me down. There's a person in our Discord who was like, oh yeah, great deck. I would love to play it, but it's too expensive. I was like, I'll mail it to you. I know you live in the Netherlands. I don't care. And they're like, nah. And then I was like, all right, Lindy, literally just take my deck. It's in my backpack. And he's like, no, I don't want to. Okay. I can't give away a $2,000 deck. I don't understand.
You're the worst card hoarder ever. Like, nobody will subscribe to your service.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I get it. I don't really want to hold on to someone's $2,000 either, but
yeah, no, it's that liability is not great.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's weird because I can already feel like the local metagame shifting a little bit, where it's just like people were just like, oh yeah, like Gerry's version was the best version of 4-color or whatever. And it's like, if people continue playing 4-color, I imagine they're at the very least going to try my version, right?
Yep.
So
So do you want to give away the secret? Like you talked about matchups you were worried about and things you feared. Is it just the usual suspects, or are there other things, like if they wanted to target specifically your deck, if people want to beat you, do you want to give them the secret sauce?
Let me look real quick. I'm visual, right? So I need to have like the list of decks in front of me.
Sure.
I'll just kind of go down the list. I was skimping on Hammer Hate. The 16th and 17th cards on my sideboard would have been Force of Vigors.
Okay.
But Hammer has just mostly been getting trounced online up until the last couple weekends. And the last weekends, CrusherBot BG got first and second with the same 75 in 2 challenges.
Impressive.
And they're also just a bunch of Hammer lists in the top 8. So if people are going to continue to skimp on hate for that deck, then I think that Hammer is pretty good, pretty scary. Burn is always pretty scary, but I think I had enough stuff for it. Maybe I wish I would have had like a couple more cards to solidify things. I don't know. In theory, like maybe like Tron is scary or Living End is scary or whatever, but
the super linears.
Yeah, and like they are, but like you do have cards for the matchups and you have plans that are good against them. So I think their best bet is to play you early in the tournament when you don't necessarily know what other folks in like the top tables are on. And so it's like, yeah, you keep like a removable heavy hand against Tron or something, and you just get like a free game loss effectively. And then maybe they can get one of the other ones. So I played against Amulet, for example, and I kept like a pretty normal hand, and then it was just like, oh, my cards are just incidentally good against them, like my Solitudes and Teferi Bounce Your Saga or whatever. So I don't think you get people as hard in those spots, but with Tron, you absolutely would.
No, that's fair. I mean, that's like the versatility of your deck shining through, right? And one of the reasons why the deck is so popular is it just incidentally plays a lot of good cards against a lot of the field.
Oh, the Valakut deck from the Mox?
Okay,
that'd be pretty bad.
Yeah. Fair enough. A very tailored tool in that case, but still, if your field was infested with 4-color, you could take that approach.
Yeah, I'm in the like sub 1% of the metagame type of stuff, and it's like, I don't know, Lantern. Like, there are definitely a lot of decks. Is like, Dredge is like pretty fast, pretty scary, ad nauseum, just a lot of stuff that you could play, but it's just
the
not
weird
that
stuff.
Good.
Yeah, the weird stuff that folds to a bunch of the other stuff in the field.
Right.
Yep, that's a good sign. Good sign for 5-color. Good sign that things are lined up. Good sign that you made the correct choice for this tournament. So
yeah, no, I think so too. I think I did, and Josh played Murktide, and after doing that and like playing this deck that is a like sub archetype that he's very familiar with and is proficient at playing, and just seeing how difficult his games were, and him eventually losing to 4-color, and seeing like kind of how easy my games were and how I was like bumbling through it or whatever. He's just like, God, I might have to start shuffling 80 cards. Huh?
Yeah, just not worth all the struggles anymore. Just take the easy road.
So yeah,
let the deck carry you.
Yeah, for local metagame type of stuff, maybe it fits your area, maybe it doesn't. But yeah, my friend in Atlanta was just like, I don't think I've played a tournament where I haven't had to play against Murktide at least once, because I technically didn't. I played against Grixis Shadow, which is pretty close, but
yeah, different. I say it's different enough that it's like worth noting. Game plans are different enough.
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't know, like it sounds like his Murktides were replaced by like my 4-color matchups basically, and I think that this deck is certainly better against Murktide, but it still has a lot of game against 4-color too. So like maybe it's even better for his area, except for what the random stuff might be. Because if there's a bunch of the hyperlinears, well, then maybe this is not the deck to play, unless you know for a fact that the hyperlinears are all going to be one specific thing. Then you can change your sideboard accordingly. But when you're like, well, I need chalices and this Magus to the Moon and Force of Vigor and whatever, like you just end up spreading way too thin.
Yeah, it's a lot to cover. That's been the thing about Modern for a long time, and it's why there's always some benefit to having just like good proactive plans on your part and make your opponents answer what you're up to.
Yeah, but other than that, I'm looking at my deck list in the article. I was pretty happy with all of the stuff that I did. Like I kind of like cut Utopia Sprawl at the last minute, and that seemed to work out pretty well. Oath of Nissa was solid. At some point, I was like, I don't see a reason for a second Triome, because I don't know. So many of the lists like play 2, right? And Jeskai Triome, it's usually
just like your first fetch, right?
Yeah, so like Jeskai Triome into Snow Forest casts all your spells, right? It casts Ice Fang and Ren 6.
Yep.
And I've seen lists with either Jetmir, Sparas, or Ketria, and those are only good if you happen to only have like a fetch and then you drew like Snow Plains or something.
Yeah.
But at that point, getting Ketria Triome isn't going to allow you to cast like Ren 6 or Ice Fang unless you also draw another land anyway.
Yep, makes sense to me.
Yeah, so I was just like, I don't want the second one. And yes, there are like weirdo backdoor situations where you naturally draw a Triome, get to cycle it, bring it back with Ren 6, whatever. And there was a point in one of my 4-color mirrors where I was like kind of flooded, but had Ren and had the Triome, and was like, do I just play this, or am I going to get time to cycle it? And I just didn't think I was going to have time, and I didn't.
It's an extremely slow mana intensive line for a format like Modern. Even like given that you're a deck that has explosive mana potential, it still seems like a lot to invest for one card a turn.
I think for the counterspell versions, maybe it's more reasonable to try and do that because you're playing like draw go a decent amount of the time.
You get inefficiency fill-ins basically.
Yeah, and with Risen Reef, like you have more resources just in general, but you also have like more stuff to do with your mana, even outside of that. So maybe it's different with this deck, and you don't need the second Triome. But I was like, I don't know, the second Triome just seems kind of silly. It was just like there for inertia, and I think that's sort of like one of the things that I'm good at. Is just like, no, actually, like this is kind of just like bullshit, right? I can just like I can just cut this, right? Like that's allowed, and I did, and it was completely fine. So I got third Cavern of Souls in there, which is obviously great in the counterspell mirrors and against Murktide. So I was pretty happy with that. The mana was pretty good. The sideboard was good. I did have the chalices that were just chilling there all day, but I'm very happy that I had them as insurance.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is very rare that I play a tournament. I'm like, I wouldn't change a card, but I don't think I would change a card from the list that I posted.
That's cool. I mean, that's a great spot for our listeners, our readers to be in, where they can just go and use your advice, and hopefully we'll start to see some of those other results trickle in, and other people taking home cues with your list. That would be really nice to get some of that going on again. Like we both talked about, that's something that has been missing from this period of Magic. The other people finding success from our work, and I think like you starting to get that feedback will go a long way towards making you feel good about what you do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the list is good. I think the plans are good. Obviously, again, there is the very small portion of the metagame that is fairly hostile towards you. But if you are picking up the deck for the first time, keep in mind that games can go very long and you can go to time. And this was maybe not as big of an issue as I potentially thought it was, but I played against Nagy in the Swiss, and we both knew that we were playing the mirror because it was, round 3 and we sat next to each other already and stuff. So we were able to do things that, like, just turn 1, game 1, we were able to like consciously try and play a little bit faster, where it's like, all right, I'm going to fetch a Jeskai Triome, your turn. And then he would like go to his turn and be like, all right, I'm doing the same. And then we would like shuffle and present instead of like, me passing and then end of his turn going through the shuffling stuff. So it's like you just end up saving like precious seconds that way. And we ended up finishing with like 4 minutes on the clock. And I think that game 3 was like pretty fast just in general. So it's like we did need that time, and hopefully your opponents can also play kind of quickly along with you. Top 8 was untimed, so it was like, okay, great. That's awesome for us, bad for the store and for, the judge and everything. But whatever. But yeah, just the most important thing outside of like, how do I play like this specific spot correctly, or like, how do I sideboard in this matchup, is like, just get used to how the deck operates and flows and functions, and just get used to fetching different combinations of lands for whatever you need. Get used to like sequencing your lands and try to plan ahead of time of like how I'm going to best spend my mana, not only this turn but like the next turn as well. And a lot of that happens to be cast your biggest spell when you have the opportunity to, so that you can double spell on the next turn, leave yourself more options. And I think that knowledge and understanding of when I could like kind of take a turn off and everything to just like play the bigger spell, even though it doesn't affect the board as much. Like those are the things that carried me the most and were the things that mattered way more than did I remember this bobble trigger. But as far as the bobble triggers are concerned, get a thing to put in the middle of the table. Like just do it. Don't feel stupid about it. Don't feel bad about it. Just do it, because with something like Shadow, it was like, okay, I'll bobble myself and then I'll fetch and then I'll like play a Tarmogoyf and pass. And not a lot is happening for you to then forget about the bobble trigger.
Right.
But this deck was, bobble, fetch, play Risen Reef, resolve that trigger, play Solitude, resolve, like a bunch of different things
ephemerate, do 10 more things. Yeah.
Right. So you do like 5 things and like the turn ends and it's just like, oh yeah, I just completely forgot about this thing. Even though I made it a point like, every single time to be like, all right, bobble has happened, right? Just like remember that. But I didn't have a thing for the middle of the table and I wish I did.
Yeah, nothing wrong with using visual aids. This would be a huge leak of mine, so I would certainly have some method of keeping track.
Yeah, I did not sleep particularly well leading up to the event. I think I got like 4 hours the night before and was getting like 4 hours for like the week.
The last 3 years.
Yeah, the week leading up to it at the very least. And that combined with like, oh, we'll get food on the way. Oh, we didn't really see anything to like, oh, the tournament's starting. And then just like, drinking like a Red Bull and a Mountain Dew to start the day. And then like not really drinking water as the day went on and everything. It was just like by round 4 or whatever, I was like very tired, very out of it, starving, probably dehydrated. Certainly by the end of it, I was dehydrated where I just had like a pounding headache and everything. So I wasn't used to the tournament life, I should have brought some peanuts. I should have got a bottle of water and I think everything would have been great. I would have felt fine, but I was like, medicated for ADHD. I had some caffeine and everything. And just by top 4, I was destroyed. I was gone. I was so out of it.
You obviously did not read all the literature surrounding performance in Magic events, and it's just like a well-established fact at this point that almonds are the actual key to winning PTQs. Like nobody. I don't
like almonds, so
you can't win. Then you'll never make it as a pro Magic player. Based on what I've read, if you aren't able to eat almonds,
it's tough to find out this way, Brian.
I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you, but everything. I mean, like Will Jonathan said it, so it's got to be true, right? Like you just have to eat almonds.
Oh my god.
A deep cut there for the old school crowd.
I don't know if you can actually Google that dude and find out the information.
It might actually be erased from the internet now.
Or if you just need to know the right people or whatever to actually get the full story. But damn,
it's an interesting one. All right, can I steal some of your time now?
Yeah, myself? Sure.
All right, I'm PTQing this weekend.
Yeah,
Pioneer PTQ on Saturday. I have decided to play Lotus Field.
Okay.
Well, I waffled a little bit in the midweek. I had like blue-white built, was considering like mono-green, but ultimately I have a theory. I would like to test that theory. I like to stick to that theory. I practiced a bit, which I know might seem pretty amazing, but just goldfishing, just sat down and goldfished for a while. And I kind of already knew what I was up to. I wasn't super concerned, but it was just good to like go through the deck and see the things that have changed, see how it affect various lines, and still feel very comfortable with it. I don't know that I end the game in the most efficient way possible every time, but again, this is one of those decks where like that's probably like you could miss your bauble triggers here because you have 73 mana and access to every card in your deck, so you'll figure it out eventually.
Let me say a thing here real quick.
Please do.
The times where I miss lethal or whatever, it's almost always because I found a different lethal.
Okay.
And so that just meant that I kind of stopped looking because I knew that the game was determined at that point.
Sure.
So as long as you know what you're doing leads to a victory, and it's not like, leads to like 70% chance of a victory or whatever, and then you just stopped looking for a better line or whatever. It was like, no, it was like it leads to like 100% victory where yes, they get an extra turn, but I have a counter spell and there's literally not a card in the format they could have or whatever, right? And I think that that's kind of what was going on with like the 4-color stuff with like the baubles and everything was like,
sure.
Yeah, just basically like I knew that I was winning with like all the stuff that I had done, and then it like the bauble just went out the window because it didn't matter anymore. So if you're finding yourself in those spots, it's not that bad. And like some people are gonna like try and give you shit for it, but as long as you are finding lethal, it doesn't matter. And I understand like why you would stop at like, I'll kill them with Leer instead of ultimatum or whatever, as long as you're gonna win, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is essentially like I'm comboing off. I am good. I am safe. I am doing the thing, and as opposed to just being like, all right, this is the moment I can go get my approach, draw a bunch of cards, I'll go through like an extra cycle of pour over the pages. And, I don't know the exact moment where I'm supposed to transition to I can win, but it doesn't introduce any new vulnerability. Like you have Lear on the table, you have 16 cards in your hand. It isn't going to matter. That's more the situation I'm talking about. Not knowing, like, it's not a situation where I don't know I can win in a various spot.
Yeah. Yeah, because otherwise you generally just like keep looking. It's not like, oh, I found O-line, whatever, I'll just do it.
Yep, exactly. So I'm very comfortable with the deck, but just like broadly speaking, what do you think I need to do to give myself the best chance of success in this tournament? Via make a sideboard guide ahead of time or watch some Lotus Field games. Like just I have a couple hours worth of free time I could devote to practicing for this event. How would you suggest I spend it?
I heard almonds are good. I don't know.
Okay, well, there you go. I will sit down and eat nothing but almonds for the next 2 days, and then I will certainly win.
No, I watched an episode of Players the night before, which is one of the things that kept me up because I don't have Paramount and Josh does, so I watched it at his place.
Got to take advantage of that, sure.
Yeah.
Get those streaming opportunities in when you can.
The show's great. It like especially that episode, it was like the right amount of hype. It was like the Smash Brothers doc like level of hype. It was great.
Okay. I will have to watch that show at some point.
Do you have to watch it? And I think you'll enjoy it more than me.
Probably. I was pretty deep into League of Legends for a long time, so yeah. I think I'll take a lot away from it.
So realistically, though, I think it is do the opposite of what I did and just make sure your sleep schedule is good. We're getting old. I think that helps a lot. As far as like goldfishing is concerned, I mean, that's what I did on and off for 2 months with the Risen Reef version. Basically, It was like, I'm putting laundry away, and it's like, ooh, there's a deck sitting here. Like I'll sit down.
It's sitting right on my kitchen counter. I just sit down and goldfish every now and then.
Yep, and that allowed me to figure out like the best way of sequencing for like Risen Reef and like what happens if I draw like the majority of my deck. And I was like, like Ephemerate's fine, but you don't want to draw too many. So I like cut it down to 2. And then I realized that like when I was comboing with Risen Reefs and the pitch elementals is like you really needed 3 to get anywhere close to dealing 20 damage.
Mm-hmm.
And to also just like be able to keep the chain going, basically, of like blinking your Omnath in the middle of it to reset it so that you can like continually make mana and get ahead that way. So like that, honestly, that's why I have 3 Ephemerates in my deck, was going back and like goldfishing.
2 months of goldfishing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think that helps a lot. I mean, especially for a deck like Lotus, right?
Yep.
But for you, I think the best thing that you could do is try and find other people's sideboarding guides. Like already sit and think about your own, right? But then go check your work against someone else's.
Yeah, so here's my thing with Lotus Field is that I mostly do not want a sideboard. There's very few cards that I'm actually actively bringing in because you mostly have a wish board. You have your Fae of Wishes, Masterminds Acquisition stuff.
Yeah, but you still have like disputes or Supreme Verdicts.
For sure,
and stuff like
for
that.
sure. But I think those are like almost always going into some very specific slots. Like the Galvanic Iteration spot is one where you can bring that in. Arboreal Grazer is another card where like occasionally you're not going to want that card, but I think that's mostly rare. Like you have to know you're playing at a slow pace. But the decisions to me for when it comes to sideboard are very face up. And I think I understand it well. And honestly, I'd rather trust myself when it comes to that type of thing, because I do think that's the type of thing I excel at. Like I'm really good at sideboard planning and something I expect to know better than other people. Not to say there's anything wrong with checking your work. I think that's probably a good approach. Like just understand what other people are doing.
Right. And I mean, there are also moments where maybe you bring in one of your wish targets or 2 against something like blue-white control to be a little bit more threat dense or whatever, it's like, think about those things. And that's all I'm saying is check your work. Like definitely don't then automatically start believing someone else over you or whatever. But it's just a reality check. That's all it is.
No, and that's a good way to look at Magic content in general. That's what I always tell people. Like, yes, here is my thing. Use it to inform yourself and then make your own conclusions. I think that's what Magic content is for. If you ever want to be like, I guess, great at the game, I think you have to ultimately take that step. There's nothing wrong with just being like a busy person who gets sideboard guides and plays those sideboard guides note for note. I totally accept that. Some people aren't going to have time for the level of devotion it takes to like actually develop that level of understanding. But to get to a higher level, I do think you need to get those instincts good, and then you just take in information from other people and use it to inform your own conclusions.
Right. And I did that with building the Murktide sideboard guide for Josh, and it wasn't like super helpful. Like some of it was like, oh, that's interesting that like this person does that. I wonder why that is. And then I get to think about that. And that's interesting.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was just, this is how I think this is going to go. This is what I think like some of the weaker cards are. And then it feels good to then see that like other people are doing the same stuff. And it's not like in one place, it's in like 3 different places or something. So I don't expect you to have as much Lotus Field sideboard guide information out there as like Murktide sideboard guide information, because there's just like a lot of Murktide content. So, maybe you won't find like multiple sources to confirm things with or whatever.
Yeah, but, man. Where do you even go from? I guess I'm going to YouTube. I don't even know where I would go. I can't even guess. Like I can find old stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I mean, if the lists look relatively the same, then I think that's fine.
I think it depends how old we're talking. I did do a cursory Google a few days ago, and it was mostly like too old to be useful. I think Lear coming into the deck is like a pretty substantial game changer. Like
sure.
Everything functions definitely with that card. Which, by the way, because I knew I was playing Lotus Field, I got all my stuff together. Was very prepared. Got my Lear quite some time ago. Lost it. Have no idea where it is. It's somewhere in my house. Like I know it was here. It's possible like it could have gotten thrown out, I guess. Like, Janelle was cleaning up or something and Lear didn't make it. So yeah, all this hard work to prepare went out the window. But thankfully my good buddy, the Brycicle, who's also responsible if you're an Arena Decklist patron. He's the king of the post office. So he's the reason all that stuff got in your hands. But he had a Lear and was able to get me the last couple cards I needed. So I am now set. And I did order another one. Maybe it'll be here in the mail when I go check the mail today. But, after recording a whole podcast talking about preparation, I felt pretty stupid to have prepared and then just straight up lost the card.
Yeah, make sure you have your cards too. One of the other things that happened that was kind of weird was we roll into the store and just like double check that we're registered. And then it's like, are we supposed to fill out our deck on Melee? And they're like, I don't know, just fill out a paper one. And it's like, okay, this is weird. And then I was like, I need to buy some cards. And they're like, oh yeah, we're not open. We're not going to open until the tournament starts. And it's like, isn't that kind of the point?
I will never understand that. And like, this store's not alone. I've seen it for actual years where stores just like aren't selling cards, but
yeah.
So
weird. Yeah, make sure you have your cards. Since I only needed 2 cards, they're like, oh, fine. Yeah, I guess I'll go do this or whatever. But it was,
I guess I'll conduct the business that my store exists to do.
Yeah. So I don't know. That was kind of weird, but yeah, make sure you have your Lear beforehand.
Yeah, I will.
So
some of the other stuff I was missing. I was like, I can find suitable. Like I didn't have a Maze Mind Tome for the sideboard. I'm like, I can live without that. But the Lear I could not live without. So
right. There was a GP or something where I, sold some stuff to a vendor and like bought some stuff, and then I had some credit left from trade-in. So like we had already like conducted the deal, and I'd like put my stuff away, and then it was like, oh, I have like $60 left or whatever. And so I just walked through and was like, oh yeah, just give me a Chalice of the Void or whatever. So they give me a Chalice, and I was like, yeah, maybe at some point I'll pick up like 2nd and 3rd copy of these for whatever. But in the meantime, I was like, this is just a one-off Chalice. This is not very helpful for me,
Mm-hmm.
And because I put all my stuff away, I didn't want to take it all back out to then put the Chalice away. So, like when you get like a pack of KMCs and they're just like in 40s in the little plastic bags.
Yep.
And so like you sleeve a 75 and then you have like a little baggie with 5 sleeves in it or whatever.
Yep. Did you chuck your Chalice in there and then throw it out?
I chucked my Chalice in there and then I kept it, but I don't know where it ended up.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm just going to be like going through a box at some point and I'm going to find this. Like now I'm very cognizant of it, that it exists somewhere.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about this Lear. Like I know it was in my house, and like what I probably did was said, oh, put it here so you remember it and then can find it when you need it. Because it was one of the first cards I ordered. So it showed up before like I had a pile going on my desk. So I probably, I don't know, put it in some random box. Yeah, maybe years from now I'll finally find it.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the Chalice. Like anytime I find like one of those little baggies with, like some KMCs in it or whatever, I'm going to be like, there's a Chalice in the middle of here for sure.
It'll be a nice surprise when it finally rears its head.
or it's gone forever, and I'm just gonna forever be looking for this thing that like very definitely doesn't exist. But whatever.
And will hang over you like a dark chalicey cloud.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So your PTQ is Saturday?
I think so. I could be wrong about that, quite frankly, but I'm pretty sure it's Saturday.
Okay, register for these things, dude. Because
I have registered. I am registered. At some point, it's either Saturday or Sunday. At some point before then, I will look and know. But I registered immediately. I'm already set.
All right. Well, for other folks, like a lot of these events do have caps. Not all of them are hitting those caps, but I think it's like pretty easy to hit a cap of, 40, 50, 60 people potentially, depending on what else is going on that weekend. So be aware of that. Definitely do that stuff and try and be as prepped as possible. So you just have one this weekend, right? Because there's two of them on the same day.
Yes. Yeah, only one this weekend.
Well, that stings, but also I don't know if I could have managed to play in like Saturday and Sunday. So
I have a feeling I will feel very similar. We'll see. I'm going into this with an open heart, willing to accept whatever the experience is. I might be miserable and like just be sitting there by myself and leave, and we'll see. But I am hoping to have a good time. I'm hoping to feel some of the things I used to feel around Magic. Frankly, it's been too long since I got excited to play a tournament and like got into the thick of things where there were stakes and potential for a finish that could actually matter to me. So I hope I get to experience that this weekend.
Yeah, it was fun. Once I think like the middle of it was more fun because I got to like shake off the anxiety, and then it was before I started feeling sick.
Yeah.
And then it was just this like feels nice and normal. Right.
It's good. Yeah, good to return to the old ways.
Oh, so a while ago, also, we'll close with this. A while ago, you asked, like what my mindset was going into these. Like, am I try-harding?
Yeah.
Or just like blocking for people or whatever. But so was supposed to play against Josh in top 4 if he won his match, and then he lost. Yep. And I was like, well, damn it, because I knew that I was going to just immediately concede to Josh.
Yeah.
And then it was like, all right, well, I'm playing against like this acquaintance basically. Like we're not super tight or anything. And it's like, well, should I offer to concede? And it's like, well, there's not a whole lot on the line. It's like,
right.
So nah, who cares? Whatever. I'll just play, and then end up winning. Opponent who I just beat was, I don't know. They said something, and I was like, I don't know. I might just concede. And he's like, don't do that. I'd feel bad. And it's like, well, I mean, if you wanted me to concede, you could ask me or whatever, right? And also like now I get to do whatever I want, right? Like you can't really feel bad about it. But so then they're like, go outside, and I'm like talking to Josh, and it's like, well, should I like offer to concede or anything? Should I just win? Whatever. And I don't know. I just felt weird about the whole thing. But then basically like the end result for every match was like, I sit down, I don't say anything, they don't say anything, we just play.
Yeah, and I think you should just erase this whole debate from your mind. I think you should just sit down and play. Honestly, I think you'll have a better time if you're not weighing this stuff. And like if someone asks you and you're like, yeah, okay. Like in that moment, you can make the decision. But I think
they can't ask me anymore because I'm not playing any more of these tournaments.
Okay, so. Yeah. This is hypothetical. But yeah. I think the best way to approach it is just like, and like I had the same situation with the Flesh and Blood tournament where like I'm not booked to cover this show yet, the nationals. I'm kind of like half assuming I'll do it. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just go and play. But like I didn't care a lot about getting the qualification. So I at some point thought like, well, am I supposed to be conceding to my top 8 opponent, who was like a very nice person and was very excited to potentially go to nationals, and asked me, am I going to nationals if I win? And I basically said, well, I'm going. I don't know if I'm playing.
Yeah.
And then at some point I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to play, man. Like that's what we're here for. Let things sort themselves out, and I'm going to stop worrying about this. And I felt better after I made that decision. So I think it's a useful tool for people like us who aren't like 100% committed to the idea of like, I have to win this thing, and know like we can maybe make somebody's day by just letting them win. I don't think people want that a lot of the times. Like I think they want the experience of getting the win. And even if they think they want that, I think in the long term, maybe it's just better to just play and let the game be what it is.
Yeah, I mean that's what ended up happening, and I don't feel bad about it. So there might be some truth to that, But also on the drive up, I was thinking about just like all of that, right? And how 20 years ago, being like a broke child, it mattered way more to maximize equity and try and get like the extra $50 out of the weekend or whatever. And it's like, I mean, realistically, if I was hard up for $50, I should just not play in the event. But it is what it is, right? And now I'm not hard up right now, but I am effectively unemployed, so maybe I will be hard up next year. Who knows? But I don't know.
You're on the professional Magic the Gathering circuit now. You're basically set.
Oh, yeah.
You have a whole career lined up in front of you.
Uh-huh. I don't know. Just like thinking about collusion and like the secret handshakes and how to say the right stuff without getting DQ'd. And like, if you know, you know. And I was just like, man, maybe I should just make this the Twitter discourse. Just not I woke up and chose violence. It was I did a 2-hour drive at 9 p.m. in 95-degree weather with no air conditioning and then chose violence. That sort of thing. Where it was just like, how do we feel about collusion? Are we still colluding anymore? Do we feel like this is a thing that's good? Like, should it be legal? The answer, of course, is it should just not be legal, right? Like,
yeah, I'm off it, man. I don't want to fuck with it anymore.
Yeah, but like it's a thing that's there, and I can't not exploit a system. You know what I mean?
You could lead the way, though. I mean, like, you're right. And I think, like, there's something to be said for players who are, like, notable leading the charge, just be like, I don't do this stuff. And that's always, like, what's going to change the public perception of whether this is right or not. Like, is it within the rules? Yeah, probably, kind of, mostly. Is it something that makes the game better? Nah, not at all. So I'm just off it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing about being in the MPL, of which you
weren't allowed, right?
Yeah, you just straight up were not allowed to concede ever.
Awesome.
And it's just like, how do you police that? And it's like, I don't know, but
but it worked, right? Like that statement alone was enough to do it. Like, it's kind of unpoliceable and a little arbitrary, but once you lay out that guideline, then people fall in line. And that's kind of my point with like being someone who leads the charge of I just play my games. The more that's the culture, the more people will embrace it.
Right. Yeah. Just once it was like, hey, we frown upon this, like, please don't do it. It wasn't like, ooh, okay, how do I get around this rule? It was, no, you're right. I just won't engage with this stuff at all. And part of it is I can say that I'm not going to do it, but then what happens in 6 months, 12 months or whatever, where I'm in a spot where it's like, I feel bad and feel like I should, and the person is asking me or whatever. But like having the backdrop of no, Wizards literally won't let me do this. It's like, that makes me not feel bad about telling someone else no.
Right.
Whereas the spot that I'm in now, it's just like, I don't know, if someone asks, I'm just going to be like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, I truly do understand where you're coming from and feel the exact same thing when someone asks me, and I'm just like, why not? Why would I care? And why would I not let this person do the thing?
Right.
But I think like if you love the game and you love what it represents and you love the competition, and it's not just like this vehicle for equity, which it is. If you treat it that way, by the way, it's just stupid. Like, it's a horrible vehicle for equity. So like, why are you making these decisions? And I get necessity
because it's not
drives
binary.
That.
It's not binary. It's not like, oh, this is only equity and nothing else, because it's like fun plus maximizing equity,
Yeah. No, I know. I'm like half devil's advocating, half believe what I say. Like I do just want a world where it's not an option to concede. Like, I just wish it was impossible.
Same, dude. I just want to be incentivized to play and then not have people make me feel awkward about it or whatever.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm just like not in a spot where if you ask me, I'm not going to feel awkward about it. Because, for your nationals, it's like, I'm kind of in the same spot where it's like, I don't know if I'm going to go to Atlanta. I might go to Atlanta and like stay at a friend's house and not go to DreamHack on that weekend. Because like they removed the mask mandate and everything. So like, I don't know. It's like, do I want to actually engage in that? But at the same time, it's like, well, I would like to have the option.
Sure. And you get to make a decision.
Now. And it's
like, if that's what you play for, that's totally fine. I think like that's acceptable.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we're all in the event, like playing for the same thing. I think it is completely fine for someone to just be like, I want to win the tournament, even though I know that I'm 100% not going, and I think that should be allowed and accepted. But instead people are like, oh, you stole this thing from me. And it's like, no, because, you did not win, and I can do with it whatever I want.
Correct. I think you're correct.
Just like,
it's
don't
somewhat
rub it in.
callous, but it's really not.
Yeah, don't rub it in. Don't make them feel bad. And the callous thing I relate to, because it's like I don't want to appear that way,
Right.
But it's just the way the system is like set up and designed, and for so many years it was like part of the culture, where if you were on the in and you knew the stuff and the right things to say or whatever, it's just like it should have never gotten to that point.
Nope. And you think about how many other things that were part of the culture, like being a dick to people was part of the culture, being like exclusive was part of the culture. Like all these things were part of the culture. So I think like rejecting those things wholesale is just it's net good. It's net good for Magic. It's net good for every game to just like move past gaming roots and the way gaming used to be, because it wasn't a good place. And we have a capacity to make it a better place now. And I do think this is part of it, actually.
Yeah, I do too. Just let people play. Their reasons are their reasons. And I mean, they have like their reasons for believing that stuff and feeling that way or whatever. And it's like, I don't know, there's no reason to like criticize someone or drag them down as a result of that. Like, who the hell are you to tell someone that they should concede or like can't play in the tournament if they're not going to use the slot or whatever? It's just like, grow up.
Yep. I agree. And to be fair, I had to grow up to reach this conclusion, because I would have been someone complaining about the other side of it, 10 years ago.
Yeah, so. Of course. But I also didn't have anyone telling me to grow up,
Yeah. No, that's fair.
I had fair the people enough. That were just like, no, you say X, Y, and Z, and they can never
like, yeah, never grow up. Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, that's how I feel about the stuff. I just don't want to be put in an awkward position, and it is definitely weird, sitting down for a match and it's like, God, are they going to ask? Like, please just like, don't ask me, please just, and then thankfully everyone just like sat down and played, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
But like certainly in those moments leading up to it, it's just like I don't want to deal with this to the point where like maybe I should just ask first or whatever. Yep. But yeah, just make it illegal or whatever. We can police it ourselves, as long as like we're all on the same page,
Agreed 100%.
All right, GL this weekend. Let me know how it goes, and
will do. I'm putting myself at 6%, by the way, to win.
Okay,
a little bit lower than your estimate, but
yeah, I have faith.
Okay.
Game.
Good luck.